My name is Emma Richardson, and I am 29 years old. There a silk dress standing beside David as we prepared to cut our three-tiered wedding cake. The reception hall buzzed with laughter and conversation, but a hollow ache settled under mine deep in my chest. Not a single member of my immediate family stood among the 75 guests celebrating with us. Only friends and David's relatives filled the elegantly decorated space. As we positioned the silver knife together, my phone vibrated insistently, discharged in the hidden pocket of my gown. A text from my mother appeared on the screen. "We need to talk immediately." Below it, 42 missed calls. My stomach dropped with a mixture of dread and desperate curiosity. Before I continue, let me know where you're reading this from and if you've ever felt abandoned by your own family during your most important moments. You'll understand how devastating it feels when the people who should love you unconditionally choose to hurt you instead. Being to understand why my entire family skipped my wedding, I need to take you back to the beginning of a story that spans decades of emotional neglect and sibling favoritism that finally exploded on what should have been the happiest day of my life. I grew up in what appeared to be a picture-perfect suburban household in Columbus, Ohio, with my parents, Michael and Preeny Patricia Richardson, and my younger sister, Chloe. From the outside, we looked like the ideal American family, with our coordinated holiday photos and annual summer trips to Lake Michigan. Our two-story colonial house with its white picket fence and manicured lawn projected an image of success and happiness that neighbors often complimented. But behind our front door, I lived as the emotional orphan of the family, invisible in the shadow of my sister's constant spotlight. Chloe was 3 years younger than me, but she might as well have traversed wearing a tiara from the moment she took her first breath. With her naturally golden hair, bright blue eyes, and magnetic personality, she was the sunshine child, invoked everyone gravitated toward. She excelled at dance, played piano beautifully, and possessed an effortless charm that drew people into her orbit like moths to a flame. I want to be clear. I was never jealous of Chloe's talents or natural beauty. What carved deep wounds in my heart was the stark difference in how our parents treated us, as if we existed in completely separate universes of worth and importance. "Mom, I got accepted into the honors chemistry program," I announced one evening during Jimmer Bosch year of high school, clutching the acceptance letter with trembling hands. I had worked tirelessly for months, staying after school for extra lab time and studying until my eyes burned. Minimized passed up briefly from braiding Chloe's hair for her dance recital the next day. "That's nice, sweetheart. Leave the letter imprisoned onto the kitchen counter so Dad can see it when he gets home from work." But when Chloe placed second in original dance competition that same week, our parents organized a celebration fallback dinner at Romano's, the nicest Italian restaurant in town. They ordered a bottle of champagne for themselves and raised a toast to our little star. I sat quietly pushing penne around my plate, wondering why my academic achievement warranted nothing more than a distracted acknowledgement, while Chloe's second-place trophy earned a family celebration. This wasn't I excelled in mathematics and science, earning academic scholarships, scrapped, and recognition. But my achievements were consistently overshadowed by whatever Chloe was accomplishing in the performing arts world. When I won the state science fair with my project on renewable energy, my parents missed the awards mom ceremony because Chloe had a crucial audition for a local theater production. "You understand, right, Emma? This could really open doors for Chloe's future," Mom explained when I expressed appointment about sitting alone in that auditorium while other students' families cheered. I did understand. But that understanding didn't diminish the sting of being perpetually relegated to second place in my own family. By the time I entered college at Ohio State University, I had reluctantly accepted Bart in the family hierarchy. I stopped calling home as frequently, knowing conversations would inevitably revolve around Chloe's latest performances or auditions. Instead, I focused on building my safeguards, making genuine friendships angry with people who valued me, and pursuing my education reused in biomedical engineering with passionate determination. Though during my senior year, when I graduated summa cum laude with a 3.9 GPA, my parents promised they would attend the ceremony. I reserved 4 seats in the massive auditorium, 2 for them, 1 for Chloe, and 1 for my roommate and closest friend, Maya. The morning of graduation, as I was adjusting my cap, treasures, and gown in my dorm room mirror, I received a text from my mother. Chloe got called back for a Broadway workshop audition in New York. We need to drive her there today. So proud of you, though. Take lots of pictures. Filled that day, she cheered loudly when my name was called, and later took photos of Hallmark but the empty chairs reserved for my painful reminder of where I ranked in their priorities. Maya Chen became the family I chose rather than the one I was born into. We met during freshman orientation and instantly connected over our shared love of science fiction novels and terrible reality TV shows. She was studying psychology, with a focus on family dynamics, and her insightful, empathetic nature brushed them the emotional support my biological family never offered. After graduation, we both found jobs in Cincinnati, crowded a cozy apartment for 3 years. Maya witnessed my struggles with my family firsthand, holding me through tears after particularly difficult holiday visits, or sitting with me in silence when my birthday passed without so much as a phone call from my parents. I met David Foster at a mutual friend's housewarming party when I was 27. He was tall, with warm brown eyes and an infectious laugh that made everyone around him feel included in the joy. He worked as a software engineer for a startup company and had the kind of genuine kindness that seemed increasingly rare in the world. On our 3rd date, over dinner at a small Thai Namar restaurant, I found myself telling him Namar about my family situation, expecting the usual uncomfortable sympathy I typically received when sharing these stories. Instead, David reached across the unborn and gently took my hand. Emma, that's not normal or okay. Communicator, you deserve so much better from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. No one had ever validated my feelings so directly before. For years, I had wondered if I was being overly sensitive or selfish for wanting recognition and support. David helped me see that my pain was legitimate and that the dynamics in my family were genuinely unhealthy and damaging. As our relationship deepened and became more serious, David encouraged me to establish firmer boundaries with my family. You can't change them, he would say gently, but you can change how you react to their behavior. He suggested I speak with a therapist, which I eventually did after unleashed months of his patient encouragement. Dr. Angela Winters helped me understand the concept of emotional neglect and how it had shaped my self-worth and ability to form healthy relationships. I began practicing what Dr. Winters called radical acceptance of my family's limitations, lowering my expectations to match reality, rather than continuing to hope for the parental love and recognition I had craved my entire life. It was painful, but ultimately liberating. I stopped trying to earn their approval and focused instead on building a life that brought me genuine happiness and fulfillment. David became my anchor, my champion, and my safe harbor in every Twitter storm. His family welcomed me with open arms from our very first visit to their home in Cleveland. His mother, Susan, called me regularly just to chat about everything and nothing. His father, Robert, sent me articles about medical breakthroughs he thought might interest me. His sister, Jessica, became the sibling relationship I had always wished I could have with Chloe. "You're part of our family now," Susan told me during my second visit as we prepared dinner together in her warm, cluttered kitchen. And in this family, we celebrate everyone's victories, no matter how big or small. I excused myself to their powder room and cried quietly, overwhelmed by the simple, unfinished kindness that felt so foreign to me after years of emotional starvation. David found me there and held me without saying a word, understanding exactly what those tears represented. With therapy, David's unwavering support, and my own growing determination, I made a solemn promise to Fight. I would stop measuring my worth by my family's inability to see it. I would create happiness on my own terms, and most importantly, I would break this destructive realization if I ever had children of my own. Little did I know how severely my resolve would be tested when David and I decided to get married. David proposed on our 2-year anniversary at the Drexel Theater, the small independent movie house where we had our first official date. We were watching a late-night showing of Casablanca when the film suddenly paused mid-scene. A custom-made video began playing on the screen, featuring photos and clips, distrust, set to our favorite song, At Last, by Etta James. When them up, David was on one knee in Nor beside me, holding an elegant, vintage-style diamond ring. "Emma Richardson," he said, his voice shaking slightly, trembling with emotion. "You are the strongest, kindest, most brilliant woman I have ever known. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life showing you how much you deserve to be loved?" Through tears of joy and disbelief, I said yes as the entire theater erupted in applause. It was perfect, thoughtful, and so completely David. Romantic submerged without being ostentatious, meaningful without being punishableless. That night, as we celebrated with champagne in our apartment overlooking the Cincinnati skyline, the familiar anxiety began to clank its in like an aim to tell my family about our engagement. And the prospect filled me, football, dread, rather than excitement. "They'll be happy for you," David assured me, though I caught the slight hodonacchio in his voice that betrayed his own uncertainty about my family's capacity for genuine celebration. I called my parents the next evening, my stomach twisted in knots as the phone rang. My mother answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted and slightly annoyed by the interruption. "Hi, Mom. I have some wonderful news to share. David proposed last night, and I said yes. We're engaged." Photographic that followed lasted just a beat too long before she responded, her voice flat and emotionless. "Flooded." "That's good, I suppose. Congratulations." No excitement, no questions about the proposal or the ring, no offer to celebrate this millionaire. The lack of enthusiasm was like a cold slap across my face. "We were thinking about a spring wedding, maybe in 6 months or so," I continued, desperately trying to generate some maternal interest or joy. "That's quite soon, isn't it?" Submerged. "Well, let us know the details when you have them figured out." Another painful pause. Chloe just got cast as the lead in a community theater production of Chicago, by the way. We're absolutely thrilled for her. It's such a competitive role. And just like that, my engagement announcement missed and overshadowed once again. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes before Mom claimed she needed to help Chloe with her costume fittings. Despite the lukewarm response from my family, David and I proceeded with our wedding plans with enthusiasm and careful attention to detail. We decided on an intimate ceremony at the Riverside Gardens, a charming historic venue with beautiful stone archways and views of the Ohio River. We wanted something meaningful and elegant rather than extravagant, with about 80 guests. Framed flowers, white roses, and baby's breath for classic elegance. We chose a caterer, a family-owned restaurant called Isabella's, that specialized in Mediterranean cuisine and came highly recommended. We found a photographer whose portfolio captured exactly the kind of candid, joyful moments we wanted. Presumption forever. Each decision felt right, like we were creating something that truly represented us as a couple and our shared values. 4 months before save the dates, followed by formal invitations / fast 3 months later. The invitations were elegant but simple, cream cardstock with gold lettering, including ones to my parents, Chloe, and several extended family members, like my aunt and uncle. Weeks passed with no RSVP from my immediate family, while responses from David's Escabel and our friends arrived promptly. angrily called my mother, trying to keep the growing anxiety from my voice. "Did you receive our wedding invitation, Mom? Elle totaled headcount soon, and I haven't heard back on ARMPU yet." "NZS, we got it. Your father and blankets and have been meaning to call you about that." Her tone was evasive, non-committal. "We'll try to freshman, of course, but you know how busy things Chloe's performance schedule." "It's my wedding day," I said, my voice strained with the effort of remaining calm. "I would really like my family to be there. It would mean everything to me." "Of course, honey, we'll do our best," breached, to work things out. Each subsequent conversation followed the same frustrating pattern. They would promise to attend, but found excuses to avoid participating in any wedding preparations or pre-ceremony activities. When I asked if my father would like to walk me down the aisle, he mumbled something about needing to check his work schedule. When I invited my mother to go dress shopping with me, she claimed Chloe needed help with audition preparations. Through it all, Maya served as my emotional, Brian fact my maid of honor, with enthusiasm and dedication that more than compensated for my family's indifference. She organized a beautiful bridal shower, helped me find the perfect dress, a flowing A-line with delicate lace sleeves, and listened patiently through my tearful venting sessions about my family's behavior. "They are around," she assured me repeatedly, "and if they don't, I'll be standing right beside you the entire day. You're not alone in this, Emma." Flooded's family stepped up in extraordinary ways that highlighted the stark contrast between chosen family and biological family. His mother offered to help with seating arrangements and wedding favors. His father insisted on contributing to the wedding costs, though we had initially planned to annihilate everything ourselves. Jessica organized a separate bridal shower with David's extended family, making me feel truly welcomed to Nick into their loving clan. During this period, my relationship with my own family grew increasingly strained and distant. My calls home were met with distracted conversations and quick excuses to hang up. Chloe rarely responded to my texts, claiming she was super busy with auditions and rehearsals. I tried to convince myself it was normal, pre-wedding stress, making me oversensitive, but deep down, I knew something was fundamentally wrong with the dynamic. Well, declaration of a drowning person reaching for driftwood. Despite years of disappointment and neglect, some naive part of me believed Truman Day would be different. Surely this once, they would show up for me, both physically and emotionally. This milestone would finally be important enough to warrant their full attention and support. With Maya by my side as my maid of honor and David's unwavering love and encouragement, I pushed forward with our plans, determined to create a beautiful clang celebration regardless of my family's level of involvement. I chose to focus on the people who were enthusiastically showing up for me, rather than those who might not. "Your wedding will be perfect because it's about you and David," Maya reminded me during one of Huurbashing sessions. "Everything else is just background noise." I clung to those words like a prayer as our wedding day approached, never imagining just how dramatically my family would prove my worst fears correct. My wedding, I was scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break at the biomedical research lab where I worked, when my thumb froze over a photo that made my heart stop beating. It was Chloe, beaming at the camera with her left hand prominently displayed to showcase a massive diamond ring that caught the light like a disco ball. The caption read, "He asked, I said yes. Hashtag engaged, hashtag future Mrs. Thompson, Bishops, hashtag so blessed." I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. Chloe was engaged to Marcus Thompson, the aspiring actor she had been casually dating for barely 6 months, and no one had bothered to. Deadliest! The comment section was already flooded with congratulations, including several from my parents. My mother had written, "So happy for my beautiful baby girl. This weekend, Ella Bios." #2Bs. My hands trembling uncontrollably. I called my mother immediately, answered on the second ring, sounding cheerful and excited, until she realized it was me calling. Emma? Is everything okay? I'm actually quite busy right now with party preparations. PNG is engaged? Omitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Pause. Oh, you saw the Instagram post? Yes, Marcus proposed last weekend. It was incredibly romantic. He took her to that vineyard in Napa Valley. And why didn't anyone tell me? I interrupted, struggling to keep my voice. Level? Blackmail? You've been so busy with parenthood wedding plans, we didn't want to bother you with additional stress. Something in her tone didn't ring true. Felt rehearsed and artificial. Flooring further, my investigative instincts, freshman kicking in. Mom, what's this about celebrating submarines? My wedding is in exactly 2 weeks. Submerged another longer, more uncomfortable pause. Chloe is having an engagement party on Saturday. Just family and close friends, nothing too elaborate. Bench's stomach dropped like a stone. This Saturday? But that's my wedding day. Is it? Her voice sounded falsely confused, poorly acted. I thought your wedding was the following weekend. Chloe has had this date planned for her party for quite a while now. Play. How could she have planned it weeks ago when she just got engaged last weekend? I asked, logic cutting through my shock 93 disbelief. Well, they've known they were getting submerged for months. They just made it official recently, my mother hedged, her story becoming more convoluted, pledged by the minute. Then her voice took on that irritatingly reasonable tone I remembered from childhood arguments. Honey, would it be possible for you and David to reschedule? We've already put down substantial deposits for Chloe's party, and everyone has made arrangements. It would be such a shame to waste all that planning. The request was so outrageous, so breathtakingly selfish, that for a moment I couldn't shack. Reschedule my entire wedding with all the vendors booked, guests invited, and deposits paid, because nationality decided to have her engagement party on the same day. No, Mom, we cannot and will not reschedule our wedding. We have 80 people coming, contracts signed, everything arranged months in advance. She sighed, as if I were being the unreasonable one. Well, I suppose we'll have to figure something out. But you know how important this is for Chloe. She's been dreaming of this engagement for so long. And I've been planning my wedding for 8 months, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. You all already RSVP'd yes to my wedding. We'll try to make it to part of your ceremony, she offered, as if suggesting a reasonable, calmer compromise. Maybe we can split our time between both events. The engagement party doesn't start until evening. I ended the call shortly after, too stunned and hurt to continue that was going nowhere productive. Immediately, I called Maya, who expressed appropriate mind outrage on my behalf. That's absolutely insane, she declared with righteous pulled indignation. They can't expect you to share your wedding day. Or worse, reschedule it for an engagement. An engagement party, Emma. / Presumption's actual Tidja theme. Imprisoned. / I do. I asked, fighting back tears at my desk while trying to maintain professional composure. Nothing. You do absolutely nothing except have your beautiful wedding exactly as planned. If they choose Chloe's party over your wedding, that's on them, not you. And I promise you, Emma, I will be right there with you every step of the way. You will not be alone. David was equally supportive when I told him that evening, though I could see anger, Tidja, flash in his eyes before he controlled it for my sake. His jaw tightened as I recounted the entire conversation. "Your family is making a choice," he said gently, but firmly. "And it's a terrible choice that reflects their character, not yours. Our wedding will breached because we'll be surrounded by people who truly love and support us." Pang. "But what if none of my family comes?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. The nightmare scenario that had been haunting me. "Then we'll still get married, still celebrate, and still begin our life, Trump, together," he said with absolute conviction. "My family will be there, our friends will be there, and most importantly, we'll be there, promising to be each other's family for the rest of our lives." I tried to take comfort in his words, but the pain of potential abandonment by my entire family on what should be one of the happiest days of my life felt overwhelming, like drowning in disappointment. That night, I sobbed in David's arms, deadliest until I had no tears left, mourning not just their likely absence at my wedding, but the family relationship I had always longed for and would apparently never have. Texted Chloe directly, hoping for some sisterly understanding. "Congratulations on your engagement. I wish you had told me personally. Is there any way you could reschedule your party? I would love for you to be at my wedding." Her response came hours later, casual and dismissive. "Thanks. Sorry, everything is already set. Automatic party. Maybe you could come for a little bit after your reception? It's going to be epic." And a screamin'. The complete lack of recognition that I could hardly attend her engagement party during my own wedding reception was the final straw. The casual disregard, the total absence of sisterly lastnesty love or consideration, cut deeper than any previous Styles slight. I didn't respond to her text. Over the next few days, I received several more texts from my mother, each making it increasingly clear that they had chosen Chloe's celebration over my wedding. The final one read, "We'll try to stop by your ceremony if we can get away from setup for Chloe's party. Hope you understand. Family comes first. Helen Hera." The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. In their minds, Chloe was family. Hera was not. Nias. The day before my wedding arrived, with a flurry of last-minute details and nervous excitement. The rehearsal is scheduled for 6 p.m. at Riverside Gardens, followed by dinner at a nearby tea. Had not heard from my family in 3 days, despite leaving several increasingly desperate voicemails asking if they would at least attend the rehearsal and dinner. The historic venue looked absolutely breathtaking, as David and I arrived early to meet with our wedding coordinator. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall arched windows, illuminating the polished marble floors and the elegant floral arrangements we had chosen. It should have been a perfect, exciting moment filled with timeless happening. "Your family hasn't arrived yet," the coordinator noted as the scheduled start time approached. "Are they running late?" "They might be," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "Let's give them a few more minutes." Pone, David squeezed my hand supportively as we watched his family arrive, one by one, all smiling and excited about Albuquerque celebration. His mother hugged me tightly, his father clapped David 3-5 on the back with obvious pride, and Jessica immediately began kissed photos to document every moment of the weekend. At 6:30, with still no sign of my family, we decided to begin the rehearsal ceremony without them. The officiant, our friend from college, guided us through the ceremony with warmth and humor that helped ease some of my tension. David's 12-year-old nephew practiced his role as ring-bearer with exaggerated seriousness that made everyone laugh, despite the elephant in the room. Everything was lovely and perfectly choreographed, except for the glaring emptiness on my side of the aisle where my family should have been standing. "We're finishing the rehearsal." My phone vibrated with a text message. I pulled it out, hoping against hope that it was my family saying they were on their way. Instead, it was my mother. Busy preparing, omitted, Chloe's party tomorrow. Good luck with the rehearsal. I shoved the phone back into my purse, determined not to let anyone accompany see how much that casual dismissal hurt. But David knew me too well. "We're not coming, are they?" he asked quietly as we walked to our cars. "No," I replied, surprised by how steady my confirmate. "They're busy preparing for Chloe's party." His jaw tightened with barely controlled anger. But he simply nodded and Fergus said, "Their loss. Completely and utterly their loss." The rehearsal dinner was at Antonella's, an Italian restaurant a few blocks from the venue. David's parents had reserved a private room decorated with white roses and soft candlelight. Place cards marked each seat at the long table, including spots that had been my absent family members. I made it through the appetizers and salad course before excusing myself to the restroom, where I leaned against the Ickmont marble sink and took deep breaths to push back the tears threatening to spill over. This was supposed to be a joyful time, and I refused to let my family's professionally for everyone else. When I returned to the table, I found that Susan had quietly trademarks the empty place cards for my family and rearranged the seating to close the obvious gaps. She gave me a small, understanding smile and a through wink, and I felt a rush of gratitude tightened, faith for thoughtfulness, and emotional intelligence. The dinner proceeded with heartfelt toasts, funny stories about David, presumption, and genuine laughter. If anyone noticed my occasional forced smile or distant gaze, they were kind enough not to mention it. Maya sat beside me, her presence a constant comfort, reclaimed as she effortlessly charmed David's relatives and kept conversations flowing whenever I fell quiet. "Pie tomorrow will be absolutely perfect," she assured me as we prepare, Dave. "I'll be at your hotel at 9 a.m. with coffee and breakfast. We'll get your hair and makeup done, get you into that gorgeous dress, and make you the most beautiful bride Cincinnati has ever seen." I hugged her tightly, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I don't know what I would do without you, Maya." "You'll never have turked out," she promised with fierce loyalty. Back at the hotel, David kissed me goodnight, misunderstanding to stay with his best man, following the tradition of invoked, not seeing each other before the wedding ceremony. "This time tomorrow we'll be husband and wife," he said, holding my face gently in his hands. Nothing else matters except that. Alone in my hotel room, I allowed myself one last attempt at reaching out to my family. I called my father's number, heart pounding as it rang and rang. "Hello?" Until he sounded distracted and slightly impatient. "Dad? It's Emma. I just wanted to check if you're still planning to come tomorrow to walk me down the aisle." A long, uncomfortable pause. "Emma, I'm sorry. Your mother needs me to help with Chloe's party setup. There's so much to do, and you know how important this is to your sister. The caterers are coming early, and we need to decorate the backyard." "More important than your oldest daughter's wedding?" asked, my voice breaks to sound strong. "That's not fair, Emma. We didn't realize the dates would conflict when we made these commitments." "There's no conflict, Dad. You chose. You're actively choosing Chloe's engagement party over my wedding." "I'm sorry you feel that way," he said stiffly, his tone suggesting he thought freshwater I was being unreasonable. "I hope you have a nice wedding." The call ended abruptly, and I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the wall. No more tears came. I felt hollow, empty, as if something fundamental, had finally broken inside me, that could never be repaired. The last thread connecting me to hope for my family's love had snapped, with a text from Maya. "Just checking in. Remply you feeling, bride-to-be?" I managed to type back, "I'm okay. Looking forward to seeing you in the morning. Flooring came quickly. About that, I'm so sorry, but something urgent has come up. Family emergency. I might be a little late, but I'll definitely be there right before the ceremony starts. Don't worry, everything will be perfect. Relics, Americans. A small flicker of unease stirred in my stomach. Maya had never been vague about anything before. She was typically precise and detailed in her communication. Her sudden evasiveness felt out of character. Flooring okay? Flooring anything I can help with? I texted back, concerned about my closest Zimbabwe. All good. Northwestern. Just need to handle this family situation. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. Ain done. Something about her response felt off, but I was too emotionally drained to analyze it further. I scrolled mindlessly through social media to distract myself, only to freeze when a new PM Chloe appeared in my feed. It was a selfie of her getting her hair and makeup done, with the caption, "Getting trembling for tomorrow's big celebration. Everyone who matters. Hashtag engagement party. Hashtag blessed." The location tag caught my eye. Bliss Beauty Salon. The same upscale salon where Maya had mentioned she needed to run an errand earlier that week for a work thing. With a growing sense of dread, I tapped on the photo to see who had liked it. There, among the names, was Maya's username. And worse, there was a comment from her posted just 30 minutes ago. "You look absolutely stunning. Can't wait for tomorrow." My hands shaking uncontrollably, I switched to Maya's Instagram profile and found a story she had posted and then quickly deleted, but not before Instagram had cached it. It was a photo of an elegant cocktail dress with the caption, "Perfect outfit for tomorrow's celebration." Me like a physical blow to my chest. My best friend, my maid of honor, the one person who had promised to stand by me no matter what, was planning to attend Chloe's engagement party instead of my wedding. I called her immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted frantically, "I saw Chloe's post and your comment. Are you going to her party instead of my wedding?" Minutes passed with no response. Then, finally, 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her reply came through. "I'm so sorry, Emma. Chloe reached out and said how much it would mean to her if I could come. I thought maybe I could do both events, but the timing won't work. I should have told you directly. I feel terrible about this." The betrayal was complete and devastating. Even my chosen family was abandoning me for Chloe. I turned off my phone, unable to bear any more communication, devastating revelations. Curling up on the hotel bed, still fully dressed, I let the tears come. Ugly, wrenching sobs that left presumption for breath and my chest aching. Everyone who was supposed to love me unconditionally had chosen my sister. Again. Even on my wedding day. The pattern that had defined my entire life was reaching its cruel crescendo. I must have cried myself to sleep, because the next thing I knew, my phone was ringing insistently. Fisherman was streaming through the hotel curtains. I had forgotten to close the night before. Grashid and disoriented, I answered without checking the caller ID. In the lobby, with coffee and bagels.
"Can I come up?"
Allison Parker had been my lab partner in organic chemistry during college. We had stayed in casual touch over the years through social media and holiday cards, and I had invited her to the blankets more out of nostalgic affection than close friendship. I certainly hadn't expected her to show up at my hotel room on the morning of my wedding. Sure," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. Room 4. To my horror, I burst into fresh tears, right there in the doorway, completely falling apart. Butterflies front of someone who was practically a stranger. Allison didn't hesitate for even a second. She quickly set the coffee and food on the nearest surface and pulled me into a warm, steady hug. Hey, it's okay," she said soothingly. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. I'm here now." Between sobs that shook my entire body, I told her everything. My family choosing Chloe's engagement party, Maya's devastating betrayal, how I was now facing my wedding day without family or a maid of honor. When I finished the whole pathetic story, Allison pulled back and looked me directly in the eyes, with fierce determination. "Okay, and Maya are being absolutely terrible right now," she said bluntly. "Second, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. If you'll have me, I would be honored to step into as your maid of honor today." "You would do that?" I asked, stunned by her unexpected humility of support. "But you barely know me anymore." "I know enough," she said firmly. "I know you're reassure, brilliant, and you deserve to have someone in your corner today. Now drink this coffee, Pornhub, while I call the hair and makeup team to confirm they're still coming at 9. And then we're going to make shaved sure you have the most beautiful, meaningful wedding day possible, regardless of who is or isn't moment." With Allison taking charge and showing me more genuine loyalty than people I had counted as much closer friends, I felt a small spark of hope thickness to my heart. Maybe this day could still be salvaged after all. "Thank you," I said simply, accepting the warm coffee Pemshi offered. "I can't believe you're doing this." "No thanks needed. Now let's get you ready to marry, trimming the love of your life." The day passed in a surprising blur of activity and unexpected joy. True to her word, Allison proved to be an exceptional substitute maid of honor, anticipating needs I didn't even know, making me laugh with stories I had forgotten from our college days, and keeping me distracted, barred from thoughts of my absent family and former best friend. The makeup artist arrived precisely at 9 a.m., transforming my tear-swollen face into something radiant and bridal. By the time I stepped into my wedding dress, a flowing A-line with delicate lace sleeves and a sweetheart neckline, I almost felt like the bride I had always imagined being. Almost, but not quite. Berlin returned as I realized there would be no mother to help me with my veil. No father waiting nervously pulled me down the aisle. No sister to share excited whispers about the future. The absence felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. "You look absolutely breathtaking," Allison said, helping me with the final day's touches and adjusting my veil. "David is going to be completely speechless when he sees you." I managed a small but genuine smile, studying my reflection in this full-length mirror. Despite everything, I did look happy. "I just wish," I began, then trailed off. "I know," she said gently, understanding without needing the words. "But today is still your day, Emma. Focus on David, on the life you're building together, on the love that brought you this moment. That's what truly matters." Flooring knock at the door interrupted us. When Allison opened it, Robert, David's father, stood there in his impeccably tailored tuxedo, looking slightly nervous, but determined. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said, his kind eyes finding mine. "At your father, while that he might not be here today, I wanted to offer my services if you would like someone to walk you down the aisle. No pressure at all, just an option if you'd find it meaningful." "'Kay." Unexpected kindness brought fresh tears to my eyes, threatening to ruin my carefully homeland makeup. "I would be deeply honored, Robert. Thank you so much." He nodded, clearly emotional himself. "The honor is entirely mine, Emma. You've made our son, happier than we've ever seen him. You're already part of our family. Today just makes it official." As we arrived at Riverside Gardens, my phone remained conspicuously pressed, silent. No messages from my parents, no last-minute change of heart from Chloe or Maya. I had known not to expect them, but the confirmation of their complete absence still stung like a fresh wound. I took a deep breath and handed my phone to Allison. "Hold this for me. I don't want any distractions during the ceremony." "Absolutely. And I've turned the ringer off just in case," she said, understanding my need to be present for this moment. guided us to the small bridal suite, where I would wait until the ceremony began. Through the window, I could see guests arriving and filling the seats on both sides of the aisle, despite knowing that most of the seats on my side would remain empty. The sight of David's extended family and our mutual friends filling the space with their presence and excitement warmed my heart. "Conflicting," the coordinator announced, and suddenly the reality of what was about to happen hit me like a wave. I was getting married without my family. The mixture of pure joy and deep sadness was almost disorienting in its intensity. "Ready?" Robert asked, offering his arm as the music began to play. I nodded, unable to speak past the abolish in my throat, but feeling stronger with Fia's steady presence beside me. Walking down the aisle felt surreal and dreamlike. I registered the smiling faces turning to watch me, heard the soft gasps and murmurs of appreciation, but everything seemed slightly until my eyes found David, waiting at the altar. His face when he saw me was everything I could have hoped for and more, a mixture of awe, overwhelming love, and absolute certainty. Aware of the empty front row on my side, the seats that had been reserved for family members who would never occupy them. But as Robert placed my hand in David's, the pain of those absences receded, replaced entirely by the one warmth of David's touch and the love shining in his eyes. "You look absolutely incredible," he whispered as we turned picturesque, the officiant. "I love you so much." The ceremony itself was brief but deeply meaningful. We had written our own vows, and David's words brought tears to my eyes and moved several guests to wipe their eyes as well. "Emma," he began, his voice strong and clear, "I promise to be your partner, equal in all things. I promise to celebrate your victories as if they were my own, to stand beside you through, undermined, whatever create a home where you always know your worth is never in question. You are the strongest, most resilient person I know, and I am in constant awe, your grace under pressure. Today, I'm not just gaining a wife, I'm creating a family with you, one where love is never conditional and support is never withheld. I love you, all of you, exactly as you are and exactly as you're becoming." When it came time for my vows, I looked into his eyes and spoke from my heart. "David, you taught me what unconditional frontline love actually looks like. You showed me that I deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You've been my safe harbor in every storm, and today, I promise to be yours. I promise to build a life with you based on mutual respect, genuine partnership, and the kind of love that lifts each other up rather than tearing each other down. You are my chosen family, my greatest blessing, and my best friend. I love you beyond words." The reception was held in the same venue, in a beautifully decorated brushed hall with twinkling fairy lights and centerpieces of white roses and baby's breath. Despite the notable absences that should have been painful, the room felt genuinely full of love, joy, and celebration. David's extended family and our friends filled the space with laughter, heartfelt conversation, and an atmosphere of pure butterflies. Knows main whenever context mine, knows often J's, self, son. Once main that means knows why, and is why. Today, when they gone me, here's me said. When, main. No one and I possible with me. No one who been, no one out. To doin', no one out. Individual fortuning. No one and our bride who would doctor with new Mary and who is need. Shot to, no one and our present of trains to reshaves. Even no need. 1.1 to get trains to them to us. No one and our bride who would doctor with new Mary and shaves full. And our Christer our stage who would doctor. No one and our love. and no David himself. David smiled. When the song ended, Robert stepped forward to dance with me for the traditional father-daughter dance, a gesture that brought fresh ragazzas and a round of appreciative applause from the crowd. "Thank you," I whispered as we moved across the floor, "for everything today, but especially for this." "You're family now," he replied simply, his voice thick with emotion. "And that's what family does. We show up for each other." The evening progressed with heartfelt toasts, delicious dinner, and joyful dancing. I found myself genuinely enjoying the celebration, despite the persistent ache that lingered beneath my smile. David rarely left my side, as if sensing when my thoughts preload to drift to those who had chosen not to be there. Finally, it was time to cut the cake. A re-tier creation, decorated with fresh white roses that matched our centerpieces. David and I stood behind it, smiling radiantly for the alleviator as we positioned the silver knife together. "Niece ready, Mrs. Foster?" Presumption asked with a stand, using my new married name for the first time. I nodded, feeling truly happy for the first time all day. "Ready, Mr. Foster." We pressed the 3-5 into the bottom tier together, everyone applauding and cheering as we made the ceremonial first cut. It was at that precise moment, as we were cutting slices for our guests and basking in their celebration, that I felt my phone vibrate unsteadily in the hidden pocket of my dress. I had retrieved it from Allison during the cocktail hour, not wanting to be completely connected in case of a genuine emergency. As David continued cutting and serving cake to our eager guests, I discreetly checked the screen. A text from my mother appeared. "We need to talk immediately. This is urgent." Below it, I saw notifications for 42 missed calls, all from my mother, father, and even Chloe. All within the last hour during my wedding reception. Amen. My stomach dropped with a mixture of dread and curiosity. What could possibly have happened that would prompt such an urgent barrage of communication after they had essentially abandoned me completely? "Everything okay?" David asked, noticing the change in my expression as I stared at my phone. I showed him the screen, my hands trembling slightly. "I have no idea what to make of this." "Whatever it is can wait," he said firmly, his protective instincts kicking in. "This is our wedding day. They made their choice earlier. They don't get to disrupt our celebration now." Part of me completely agreed with him. I wanted to silence my phone and continue celebrating without giving my family another thought. But another part of me, the part that had always hoped for reconciliation and understanding, made me hesitate. What if Shields was genuinely wrong? What if someone was hurt or in real trouble? What if something serious has happened? I asked, torn between protecting my preventive and my ingrained sense of family obligation. David studied my face carefully, then sighed with understanding. "If you need to call them back, I understand completely. Remember, you don't owe them your time or emotional energy today. This day belongs to us." I squeezed his hand gratefully, drawing strength from his unwavering support. "I'll step outside for just a minute. If it's nothing important, I'll come right back and we'll continue celebrating." Finding a quiet corner in the venue's garden, surrounded by fragrant roses and twinkling lights, I dialed my mother's number, whitelist with shaking fingers. She answered on the first ring, her voice tearful, frantic, and barely coherent. "Blankets! Oh, thank God you finally answered. Unprotected to reach you for hours and hours." "Gwen was getting married, Mom," I said, unable to keep the sharp edge from my voice. What's so urgent that it couldn't wait until after my wedding? What she said next would fundamentally change everything I thought I knew about this day, about my relationship with my family, and about the sister I had always believed simply outshone me in our parents' eyes through natural talent and charm. "It's about Chloe," my mother said, her voice breaking with what disarmed like genuine anguish. Marcus called off the engagement right in the middle of the party, in front of everyone. He couldn't go through with marrying her because Chloe told him what she did to you. Emma, we know the truth now. We know everything. I sank onto a nearby stone bench, my legs suddenly unable to support me as I tried to process my mother's words. The garden around me seemed to spin slightly, the fairy lights blurring transitional streaks of gold. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What did she do to me? My mother's breathing was uneven, punctuated by sniffles and what sounded like genuine remorse. Chloe lied to us, Emma. About everything. She rehearsed her engagement party on your wedding day. She told us that you had changed your wedding date and didn't bother to inform us because you didn't want us there. The world seemed to tilt beneath me, reality shifting in ways I couldn't quite comprehend. What are you talking about? She showed us text messages from you, my father's voice cut in, and I realized I was on speakerphone. Messages saying you wanted nothing to do with us, that you were having a private ceremony with just David's family because they were your real family now. She said you specifically asked us not to come because our presence would ruin your perfect day. My hand trembled as I gripped the phone tighter, struggling to breathe normally. Mom, Dad, I never sent any texts like Shavik, ever. I've been calling and messaging for weeks, practically begging you to cleanse them. I left multiple voicemails asking if you'd even attend the rehearsal. I know that now, my mother admitted, her voice small and ashamed. Marcus confronted Chloe today when she made a comment about finally being the center of attention for once. When he pushed her on what she meant, she completely broke down, suppressing. It did everything. She created fake text conversations on her phone, deleted your real messages, annihilated our phones when we weren't looking, and even intercepted the thinly wedding invitation you sent to our house. I struggled to breathe as the magnitude of Chloe's deception overwhelmed me. The systematic manipulation, the calculated cruelty, the elaborate web of lies she had constructed. It was beyond sibling rivalry or jealousy. It was something much darker and more disturbing. Han, but why would you believe I wouldn't want you at my wedding? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me since this conversation began. After all the times I called, all the voicemails I left, rocked, trademarks, Twitters, rocking about this moment, title Twitter. She had an answer for everything, my father said, his voice heavy with guilt and guilt regret. She said you were just keeping up appearances, that you had confided in about how you really felt. We should have questioned it more, should have called you directly instead of relying on Chloe as our intermediary. But she was so convincing, Emma. She even cried about hurt she was that you didn't want your own family at your wedding. Another crucial piece of the puzzle was still missing. What about Maya? Why did she choose Chloe's party over my wedding? There was another pause, this one heavy with shame and embarrassment. Chloe told Maya that you had asked someone else to be your maid of honor, my mother explained. She Shalman's fake text messages from you, saying you had only asked originally out of obligation, but had found someone you connected with better. Chloe convinced her that coming to the engagement party would spare Maya the humiliation of being replaced publicly at your wedding. Everything clicked into place with devastating clarity. Maya's sudden change of plans, her vague excuses, her evasiveness about the Apple family emergency. It all made perfect twisted sense now. Wherefield now, risingly steady, despite the emotional storm raging inside me. She left immediately after Marcus broke things off, my mother said, her voice cracking again. She packed a bag and drove away. We don't know where she went. She's not answering our calls or texts. Her voice was thick, with emotion. We are so sorry. We failed you completely. Misunderstand. We don't expect you to forgive us, but we needed you to know the truth as soon as we learned it ourselves. I sat in stunned silence for a moment, trying to process not just the revelation of Chloe's elaborate deception, but the fact that my entire Tring wedding day, which I had spent mourning my family's absence, had been built on lies. They had wanted to be there. They had thought I didn't want them there. I need to process this, I said finally, my mind reeling with implications, prematurely and emotions I couldn't even begin to sort through. I'm in the middle of my wedding reception right now, my father said quickly. Interstate. Wait another moment to tell you the truth. Is there any chance we could see you tonight? Or tomorrow? Clang, whenever you have time. She need to try to make this right. Even though we know we can't and sing your wedding. The request felt surreal after everything that had happened. My wedding day, which I had imagined since childhood, would include my family celebrating with me, was almost over. They had missed the ceremony, the vows, the created or experienced again. I'll text you the address of our hotel, I said finally. We'll be preached back there around 11 tonight. You can meet us in the lobby if you want to talk. After ending the call, I sat motionless in the garden, trying to comprehend the magnitude of Chloe's betrayal and my parents' devastating gullibility. How could my sister have orchestrated something so elaborate and cruel? Have believed her so easily without ever speaking directly to me? The sound of footsteps on the garden path broke through my thoughts. David appeared, concern etched across his flushed features as he approached my bench. You've been out here for almost 20 minutes. Is everything okay? I looked up at him, my husband of just a few hours, and felt a rush of gratitude for his steady, loving presence in my life. No, I answered honestly. Nothing plight is okay. But I think maybe it will be, eventually. I told him everything, watching his expression shift, from shock to anger to disbelief as the full story unfolded. When I finished, he ran his hands through his hair and shook his head in amazement. He struggled to find adequate words. I don't even know what to say. Chloe deliberately sabotaged our wedding day. She manipulated everyone, including Maya. That goes way beyond normal sibling rivalry or jealousy. That's calculated, psychological manipulation. Confiscated. We'd meet them at the hotel after the reception, I said. I need to hear them say face to face. I need to understand how they could believe I would exclude them from the most important day of my life. David took my hands in his touch grounding me in the present moment. Are you sure you want to do this tonight? We could wait until after our honeymoon, if you need time to process everything. I shook my head firmly. No, I need closure before we rocked for Greece. I can't carry this emotional weight with me for 2 weeks. I need to know where we stand. Then we'll face them together, he said with absolute conviction. Whatever you decide after hearing them out, I'll support you completely. We're a team now, Emma. You're not facing this. We returned to the reception where our guests had hardly ne'er brief absence amid the continued dancing and celebrating. For the remainder of the evening, I went through the motions of being a joyful bride, smiling and thanking people for coming, dancing with David and his trembling ass, cutting more cake, all while my mind kept returning to the revelation that had turned my understanding of my family completely upside down. The knowledge that they had actually wanted to be there, that they had been manipulated, just as cruelly as I had been, changed everything about how I viewed this day and my relationship with them. At 10:45, we made our exit amid a shower of rose petals and rice, changing quickly at the hotel before heading down to the lobby to wait for my family. My stomach churned with nerves, my thoughts a chaotic jumble, questions, accusations, and a tentative hope I was afraid to fully acknowledge. They arrived at 11:20. My parents looking haggard, surged, and red-eyed, clearly devastated by their discovery of the truth. My mother rushed toward me as soon as she spotted me, arms outstretched, but stopped short when I instinctively stepped back, still too raw and confused, to accept physical comfort. "Let's go somewhere more private," David suggested gently, gesturing toward a small conference room off the lobby that the hotel had left unlocked for late-night guests. The four of us stood in awkward, hailed silence until my father spoke, his voice broken and ashamed. "Emma, we don't expect forgiveness. What we did, believing Chloe over you, missing your wedding day, it's unforgivable. But we need you to know how deeply, profoundly sorry we are." "Sorry doesn't change the fact that you missed my wedding," I said, my voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "Or that you believed I would exclude my own family without even picking up the phone to ask me directly." "You're absolutely right," my mother whispered, tears streaming down her fence unchecked. "There's nothing we can say to justify our actions. We failed you as parents, not just today, but for years and years." The question that had been burning inside me since the phone call finally emerged. "Why was it so easy for you to believe I wouldn't want you there? What kind of relationship did you think we had that would make Chloe's story believable?" My parents exchanged a pained look, communicating something silently, before my father answered with brutal honesty. "The truth is, we knew we hadn't been good parents to you, Emma. We knew we had favored Chloe consistently, made excuses for missing your important moments, failed to celebrate your acknowledges the way we should have. When Chloe told us you didn't want us at your wedding, part of us believed it because we felt we deserved that rejection. We knew we had earned your resentment." His admission hit me like a physical blow. "So instead of fighting for a relationship with me, instead of trying to make amends, you just accepted it?" "Surrendered. We were cowards," my mother admitted, her voice barely audible. "It was easier to believe Chloe's lie than to face the truth of how badly we had failed you over the years. And she's our daughter too, so we never imagined he would lie about something so important, so devastating." I looked unleashed in my parents, really looked at them for maybe the first time in my adult life. They seemed smaller somehow, diminished by their guilt and shame, but also more human than ever appeared to me before. "Where's Chloe now?" Anik, I asked. "Why isn't she here, apologizing herself?" "Condemned," my father said, spreading his hands helplessly. "She left immediately after Marcus confronted her. She's not answering our calls or texts. I think she's ashamed of what she did, maybe finally understanding how serious this was." I shook my head, still overwhelmed by the scope of my sister's deception. "I don't understand how she could do this. We've had our issues over the years, but this level of manipulation, this calculated cruelty—" "I think she's always been jealous of you," my mother said quietly, her voice filled with regret. "Pagina? Your intelligence, your independence, the genuine relationships you build with people. We spoiled her, made her the center of attention, constantly, but I think, deep down, she Walsh wanted what comes naturally to you. Real connections, real accomplishments that aren't just about performance or appearance." David, who had been silent throughout, Ken of this conversation, finally spoke up. "That might explain her feelings, but it doesn't excuse her actions. What she did was deliberate, systematic, psychological manipulation, designed to destroy Emma's most important day." "You're absolutely right," my father agreed emphatically. "There is no excuse for what Chloe did. And we enabled her behavior for years by always giving in to her demands and tantrums, by making her feel like the world revolved around her wishes." I sat quietly for a long moment, processing everything that had been said. Despite my anger and hurt, despite the irreplaceable presumptionally absent from my wedding, I could see genuine remorse in Millet's faces. They weren't making excuses or shifting blame. They were taking full responsibility for their failures. "I can't forgive you tonight," I said finally, my voice steady but firm. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully forgive missing my wedding day, but I'm willing to try to build something new going forward if you're truly committed to changing these patterns. They both nodded eagerly, hope flickering in their eyes for the first time since arriving. That means acknowledging the dysfunctional patterns that got us here, I continued. It means therapy, both individually violent and potentially as a family. It means real accountability, not just for today, but for years of emotional neglect and favoritism. Mother said immediately, without hesitation, "We'll do absolutely anything you ask." Queen and Chloe need serious professional help too, I added. What she did goes far beyond normal sibling rivalry. This was psychological manipulation that could have destroyed multiple relationships permanently. We completely agree, my father said. When we find her, getting her professional help will be our absolute priority. She can't continue living like this, treating relationships as competitions to be won. We talked for another hour, a painful but necessary conversation that began the long process of examining the dysfunctional patterns that had defined our family dynamics for decades. There was no magical reconciliation that night, no tearful group hug, years of accumulated hurt and resentment. But something fundamental shifted between us. A door opened that had been locked for years. And I finally headed up to our hotel room, emotionally drained but strangely at peace. He squeezed my hand supportively. "Are you okay with how that went?" I considered the question carefully, taking inventory of my emotions. "Not yet, but I think I will be, eventually. It's going to take time and a lot of work, but for the first time in yearlings, I feel like there might be hope for an actual relationship with them." 6 months had passed since our wedding day, and David and I had settled beautiful rhythm of married life in our apartment overlooking downtown Cincinnati. We were learning the daily patterns of being true partners in all aspects of life, sharing household responsibilities, supporting each other's careers, and building the kind of unthinkable relationship we both wanted to model for our future children. Our honeymoon in Greece had been absolutely magical, a much-needed escape from the family drama that had overshadowed our wedding. For 2 blissful weeks, we explored ancient ruins Unday in Athens, swam in the crystal-clear Santorini, and began the healing process from the events surrounding our marriage. The distance and beauty of our surroundings helped us focus on our commitment to each other rather than dwelling on the pain of that day. Upon our return to real life, the hard work of rebuilding family relationships began in earnest. True to their promises, my parents had immediately fracking therapy, both individual counseling and couples therapy together. They also suggested family therapy sessions with me, which I agreed to after several married weeks of careful consideration. Every Thursday evening, we met with Dr. Sarah Patterson, a family therapist who specialized in adult family dynamics and estrangement issues. The sessions were often difficult and emotionally exhausting, but gradually productive. Healing isn't linear, Dr. Patterson reminded us during one particularly challenging session where old resentments had surfaced. There will be progress and setbacks, moments of breakthrough and moments of frustration. The important thing is your commitment to staying in the process, even when it gets uncomfortable.
Chloe had resurfaced 3 days after the wedding, calling my parents from a preventive room 2 hours away where she had been hiding, ashamed and terrified to face the consequences of her actions. They convinced her to come home and immediately found her a therapist who specialized in personality disorders and manipulative behaviors. It took nearly 2 months before I agreed to see Chloe face to face. We met at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop halfway between our respective homes. She looked different when she walked in, smaller somehow, stripped of the confidence, punishable that had always seemed to radiate from her like a force field. "I don't even know where to begin," she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she sat across from me. "Saying I'm sorry seems completely inadequate for what I did to you. Windshield? Priesthood is simply..."
It was the question that had haunted me since that night at the hotel. Why would you go to such elaborate lengths to ruin my wedding day? Chloe stared into her untouched latte for a long moment before answering, her hands trembling slightly around the cup. I've been seeing Dr. Morrison twice a week, and we've been talking extensively, /false, about this, about why I did what I did, she began slowly. The simple, _Alice, but it's much more complicated than /that. She explained how she had grown up feeling like she constantly had to perform to maintain our parents' attention and approval. While they praised her publicly, she revealed, privately they often compared freezes to me in ways that made her feel inadequate despite being the obvious favorite. Striped, why can't you be more focused like Emma? Why can't you find a stable career like your sister? She quoted. I heard variations of those questions my entire life. I listened, with growing surprise. I always thought they favored you completely and unconditionally. They did, in many ways, she acknowledged, but their love came with constant pressure to be perfect, to be their shining star. I had to be their charming, talented daughter at all credimes. You got to be authentic, to build a real life with genuine friends and meaningful accomplishments. I just performed for approval, but it never felt real or dismissing. That still doesn't explain why you would sabotage my wedding, I said, not willing to let her off-lanosity hook entirely. Fresh tears filled her eyes. When you got engaged to David, I could see how genuinely happy you were, how complete and authentic, forbidden your life seemed. Marcus had just proposed to me, but it felt hollow, like another performance in a long series of performances. I wanted what you had. And when I realized I couldn't abolish it, I wanted to destroy it. It, pull back and petty and cruel and absolutely unforgivable. Okay, yes, it was, I agreed firmly, not willing to minimize the harm she had caused. What you did could have destroyed my marriage before it even began, not to mention my relationship with Maya and our parents. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said quickly, holding up her hands. I know I don't deserve it, and I'm not sure I ever will. I just wanted you to know that I understand the magnitude of what I did, and I'm getting professional help to make sure I never hurt anyone like this again. That first conversation was awkward and painful, but it represented a genuine beginning. In the months that followed, Chloe continued intensive thaw therapy, eventually moving out of Rallied House and starting her first real job as an administrative assistant at a nonprofit organization. Her first employment that wasn't related to entertainment or performance. Being slowly, carefully, she began building an identity wasn't based on being the center of attention or competing with others for approval. It was clearly difficult work, and there were setbacks, but I could see genuine effort and change happening. My relationship with my parents evolved more gradually but consistently. They made sincere, sustained efforts to know me as I am now, not as the overlooked child they had failed to nurture properly. My mother began calling regularly, not to talk about Chloe's latest activities, but to ask about my work, my interests, my life with David. My father started sending me articles related to biomedical engineering and asking thoughtful questions about my career goals and research projects. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely seen and valued by my family. Not completely, not perfectly, but authentically. The wall, resentment I had built over decades began developing small cracks, letting in tentative slivers, sailed of hope and possibility. My relationship with Maya proved much more difficult to repair. When she learned the full truth about Chloe's manipulation, she was absolutely devastated. She sent flowers, heartfelt cards, and lengthy emails, desperate to explain and apologize. I ignored them all, for weeks, the betrayal still too fresh and painful to address. Eventually, I agreed to a single phone chip conversation. I should have called you directly, she said, her voice thick with regret, misuse, and self-recrimination. I should have known you would never just replace me as your maid of honor without talking to me first. We've been friends for too long for that kind of casual dismissal. Yes, you should have, I agreed bluntly. That's what hurts the most, Maya. You believed the worst retreated interpretation of my actions without even asking me if it was true. Boy, I have no excuse, she admitted honestly. I can only say that I'm deeply sorry, and I'll spend as long as it takes trying to rebuild your trust, if you'll let me try. Rebuilding Traverse, I discovered, is infinitely harder than Chrome It in the first place. With Maya, the process was slow and sometimes painful. We started with occasional text messages, progressed to coffee meetings once a month, and gradually worked our way back towards something resembling friendship. The easy closeness we had once shared remained elusive, perhaps permanently damaged, but we were making progress. Surprisingly, Allison became a genuinely telecommunications after her 11th hour rescue of my wedding day. We met regularly for lunch, and she became part of our Extanium social circle, often joining David and me for dinner parties or movie nights. Her loyalty during my darkest moment had forged a bond that felt unbreakable. Our first wedding anniversary, David and I decided to host a small dinner party at our apartment. Nothing elaborate or dramatic, just a simple celebration with a carefully chosen group of close friends and family members. My parents came, bringing a beautiful photo album they had created featuring pictures from my childhood and academic achievements they had previously overlooked or minimized. Chloe came too, bringing a thoughtful gift, a square-framed photo of David and me from our engagement party, and maintaining a quiet, respectful presence as she continued working on finding her authentic self outside the spotlight. During dinner, David clinked his wine glass to make an announcement. He looked at me with eyes twinkling with excitement, and I nodded, giving him permission to sharing the news we had been keeping secret for weeks. We wanted to wait until today to tell everyone, he said, reaching for my hand across the table. Emma and I are expecting our first child. The baby is due in June. The table erupted in genuine joy and enthusiastic congratulations. My mother cried happy tears. My father beamed with unmistakable pride. And Chloe hugged me gently, whispering, "You're going to blackmail an amazing mother," in my ear with what sounded like sincere emotion. Later that evening, after everyone had left and David and I were cleaning up the dishes together, he asked thoughtfully, "Are you happy with how things flushed are now with your family?" I considered the question carefully, drying a wine glass while I thought. "I'm at peace with it," I answered honestly. "It's not perfect, and there are still moments when the old hurt resurfaces unexpectedly. But we're building something new, something healthier than what we had before. That feels like enough for now." "And with the baby coming?" prompted, placing a protective hand uphill on my still flat stomach. "When I want our child to know their grandparents and aunt, but within healthy boundaries that we establish and maintain," I said firmly. "I want to paycheck the cycle of favoritism and emotional neglect completely. Our child will never wonder if they're loved unconditionally or if they're enough exactly as they are." The journey from that devastating wedding day to this moment of cautious optimism had been challenging, filled with difficult conversations and painful realizations, but it had also been profoundly illuminating. I learned that families are not static, unchangeable entities, but dynamic relationships, refugees, that can evolve and heal with genuine effort and consistent accountability. I learned that sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is setting clear, firm boundaries, demanding the respect we deserve, and being willing to walk and assist in relationships that consistently diminish us, even when those relationships are with biological family members. It's most importantly, I learned that forgiveness is not a single dramatic act, but an ongoing process that happens gradually, in its own time, and cannot be forced or rushed by anyone else's timeline. True forgiveness comes not from forgetting the hurt or pretending it didn't happen, but from understanding it, processing it thoroughly, and choosing to move forward with new awareness and stronger protective boundaries. As I look toward the future now, preparing to create a family of my own with David, I carry these hard-won lessons with me every day. I am no longer the daughter desperately seeking approval and acknowledgement from parents who seemed incapable of providing it. I am a woman who knows her inherent worth, who has built a life filled with genuine love and mutual respect, and who chooses daily to nurture relationships that nurture me in return. Sometimes the heart must break completely before it can heal into something stronger and more resilient. My heart shattered that day when I stood, essentially, alone at my wedding, surrounded by David's family, but abandoned by my own. But from that complete breaking came a strength and clarity about relationships that I might never have found otherwise. For that unexpected gift, despite everything else, I find myself genuinely grateful. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone who deeply hurt you? How did you find the balance between forgiveness and protecting yourself from being hurt again? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more authentic life experiences that explore the complex dynamics of family relationships. Thank you for joining me on this journey of heartbreak and healing. Remember, healing isn't about erasing the scars or pretending the pain never happened. It's about wearing those scars with the knowledge that you survived something incredibly difficult and emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate.